again, and thank you so much for joining us at Obsicast. As promised, we have Camila De Santos back with us on Obsicast. Thank you so much for joining us, Camila.
Thank you for having me.
People really enjoyed the first episode and the conversations that we had together. And I'm very grateful for the fact that you agreed to come back, because there's so much to cover. This episode, we're going to talk about something that a lot of us are suffering from, burnout. First of all, I want to ask you, what's the difference between stress, fatigue, and burnout, and what are the symptoms?
So stress has a bad rep as being challenging, difficult. We all connect stress to challenging situations in our life. But in fact, stress in the body is known as the cortisol hormone, which is not always bad. We have good stress and we have bad stress. Good stress is also known as eustress. Cortisol gives us energy. It's supposed to rise in the morning. Now that when we wake up and we open up our curtains, we receive natural sunlight through the optic nerve, and this triggers what we call the adrenal axis, right? Our adrenal glands, our pituitary, our hypothalamus, to start the awakening process, to get us up and out of bed, embracing activity, embracing life, the fire energy, essentially. But if throughout the day we are constantly exposed to either mental or emotional stresses, which are challenging circumstances that are not quite aligned with us or push us outside of our boundaries, then this can have a negative effect on the body and be that negative, more dangerous cortisol that creates a lot of oxidative stress in the body. We also have physical demand, which creates physical stress in the body, overworking the body or being exposed to too many toxins. This is inflammatory oxidative stress. This can happen on a day-to-day basis, and supposedly at night we go back home, we move into a relaxing state, and then we go to bed at night. We should recover if we have optimal sleep quality, and the next day we can start the same cycle again. But if stress is prolonged, and if we have more negative stress than positive eustress, then that becomes prolonged stress. It creates a lot of inflammation, oxidation in the body, and it leads to what we call burnout, where people are feeling fatigued when they wake up in the morning. That's one of the telltale signs, right? If you're feeling fatigued in the morning, finding it difficult to get out of bed, difficult to feel motivated. And then eventually you have chronic stress and adrenal fatigue. And we have 3 different phases of adrenal fatigue. Initially, usually we can simply take a look at signs and symptoms to understand where the person is at and how we can support them. But when individuals move into a state of true adrenal fatigue and chronic stress, we want to do some testing. We want to understand on a biochemical level what is happening, what stage they're at, and that will dictate the therapeutic approach.
And are all the symptoms the same? How do we know whether we are just stressed or whether it's we're burnt out?
So stress usually feels initially quite energizing. This is also the first phase of adrenal fatigue. You feel highly strung. You feel irritability, frustration, anxiety, and difficulty sleeping, difficulty relaxing. Essentially, this is stress. When you get to a burnout stage, you're experiencing the stress during the day, and that's affecting sleep at night, and then you're waking up groggy or not fully energized in the morning. This is similar to, also we consider some of these aspects similar to the second phase of adrenal fatigue. The last phase of adrenal fatigue is when you have no cortisol production. Your body's used all of it up. You don't have any eustress. You don't have any good energizing inner motivation in the morning or throughout the day, and you're exhausted when you go to bed at night, and you wake up exhausted again. Because cortisol fluctuates and there are different stages, it will also affect all the other tissues of our body which have cortisol receptors. First and foremost, thyroid, right? It's actually part of the adrenal axis as well. Our thyroid is important for immune function, metabolism, and regulating stress, right? Because it's part of the whole adrenal axis. It will affect our sex hormone production, estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. So menstrual cycle for women. For men with lower testosterone, they can have, for example, more tightness in the musculoskeletal system, especially tendons of the body. And then it can also affect our GI tract, our gastrointestinal tract, because stress highly influences blood flow to the GI tract, right? How we break down and metabolize our foods. This is when we talk about, are we what we eat or are we what we absorb? We need to make sure that we're in the correct state of being, and there's no inflammation in the GI tract to properly digest and absorb our foods and antioxidants that are going to help us heal and support us in achieving our goals and regaining that balance.
Mm-hmm. How do factors like lifestyle and diet have an impact on fatigue and burnout?
So in phase number 1, when we are highly strung and irritable and anxious, then we want to make sure that we're bringing in a lot of foods that have a lot of minerals to calm down the body. There are also key components in food and in supplements that are going to help lower cortisol and bring down the associated inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. At this phase, it is important to do physical activity as well, to do some exercise, because you've got a lot of cortisol, you've got more energy in the body. Let's use that in the most productive way and create endorphins by doing some exercise. Endorphins are what make us feel good, essentially. That's why, in part, exercise is so good for us. In a second phase, and especially in a third phase, adrenal fatigue, where you're losing more and more energy progressively, right, and moving more into a state of depression, usually there's not enough cortisol, there's not enough energy in the body to do physical activity. So you want to do things rather like yin yoga, or some very soft Pilates, or take some mindful walks in nature. You don't want to push the body too much. You can't be demanding of the body. You can't rev the body up that much because there isn't enough fuel in the body. So the first step is really rest and then slowly integrating soft exercise. During the second and third phase of adrenal fatigue, when we're moving out of the initial burnout state and deeper into that more depressive inertia-like state, we need to continue with an anti-inflammatory diet, rich in antioxidants and minerals as well. But now there are particular supplements that we should consider bringing in to really rev up the cortisol levels in the most appropriate and healthy way. Certain compounds very specific for this. So, for example, Cordyceps medicinal mushroom is one of my favorites for adrenal fatigue because it supports a healthy raise of cortisol, and it also supports our sex hormone production. Very rich in antioxidants, so it combats the oxidative stress as well, and it also has a slight adaptogenic effect to it, helping us with resilience to stress. This, for example, the Cordyceps mushroom, can be added to the first beverage of your day, for example, incorporating it in food. You can also add it to yogurt or to porridge. So really incorporating it into your day-to-day nutrition. You don't have to take a separate capsule of these medicinal mushrooms. It's my favorite way to use mushrooms is bring them into the diet. And Cordyceps is number 1 for supporting a nice healthy cortisol raise if your levels have all dropped and you're in extreme fatigue.
You mentioned the fact that when you're burnt out or you are depressed, you have to start with milder exercises, because I've had those experiences when you're depressed and everybody tells you, just go for a run, and you can't. It's just impossible. You don't have the energy to just jump out of the bed and go for a run, because if you were able to do that, then you wouldn't have been depressed.
Exactly. It kind of happens in a cycle, right? So if you're already in a stage of inertia and depression, you have to slowly and gently nourish the body back to a state of balance before you really engage in that more demanding exercise. But yin yoga, which is a soft, stretching, symmetrical type of exercise that also focus on breath work, on mindfulness, this will help soothe the body and mind and help essentially balance out cortisol. Although it is relaxing and you're already in a depressed inertia state, it is going to help stimulate the right neural pathways and patterns within your body so that you can bounce back. So that small amount of soft exercise is beneficial in that case.
I remember I went through a stage, Camilla, that when I worked as a reporter and in a very high stress newsroom, I went through a phase of having joint pains. And at first I thought that I had developed rheumatoid arthritis. I did all the tests and no doctor could find out what was wrong with me. Until I changed my job, completely changed my lifestyle, and suddenly all those pains go away. But not everyone has the privilege of being able to change their job, and they are suffering from all these symptoms that are very difficult to live with, and it just makes day-to-day life almost impossible for some people. What can they do?
So you are a highly sensitive soul who's started to connect the dots and understood that there was a correlation between your highly stressful environment, right? It's extremely traumatizing, and the way that stress was manifesting in your body, but not everyone can make this link. So first and foremost, understanding and being aware of your body and where things are coming from is extremely empowering, because from that point on, we can understand that there are therapeutic avenues available to us. With such high stress in the body, again, we need to ensure that we're bringing in antioxidants to lower the inflammation. There are particular compounds that are specifically like most important, most potent anti-inflammatories, but they will work on different tissues of the body. You're saying your hands were majorly affected, right? From a psychosomatic point of view, this will immediately affect the way you interact with your day-to-day environment. Hands are connected to how we can control and interact on a day-to-day basis. So I would imagine that you felt a lack of control related to that stress. What I would suggest is reflecting upon that. Even just the awareness is important for the body. And then from that point on, making sure that you follow an anti-inflammatory diet, rich in omega-3, rich in antioxidants, rich in collagen peptides to nourish all of your musculoskeletal tissue, and then a nice extract of turmeric being very rich in curcuminoids, ginger, rosemary, and Boswellia serrata, also known as frankincense, to bring down the inflammation in your body. Simultaneously, bringing in some adaptogens, whether it is through food, we spoke about cordyceps, for example, or through direct supplementation. Adaptogens are those plants that help us adapt to stress. When we are feeling low in energy and when the last stages of adrenal fatigue, they pick us up. When we are experiencing high-strung stress and a lot of fight and flight, they will also help us relax and calm down. If we have time to stop, to breathe, to switch off that fight and flight and connect with our parasympathetic rest, digest, and regenerate through long exhale, wonderful, but perhaps being in a war zone, we don't have too much time to think about breath. If you can schedule in the time, please, important. And then going more in depth beyond my expertise really is doing some counseling and even maybe some psychedelic assisted therapy. Very important.
At the time, I saw a naturopath, and one of the things that she immediately banned for me was coffee and caffeine in general. Tell me about the food that contribute to that level of stress / burnout.
Any foods that are inflammatory, refined, commercialized will create more stress in the body. And then anything that has caffeine in it, of course. A lot of us feel like it's normal to have a coffee or even 2 or 3 a day. But really we should be able to regulate our own energy levels by ourselves without any external influence. We shouldn't need a coffee in the morning, especially not first thing in the morning, especially not on an empty stomach. So we spoke about cordyceps, for example, incorporating that into diet, adding it to a beverage, for example. With every single patient I sit down with, whether they're in a state of burnout or adrenal fatigue or not, it's important that first thing of the day, we have water before anything, that we replenish our electrolyte levels with alkalizing minerals. And then, yes, we can have a coffee, but it will need to be alongside some food, particularly some protein. Otherwise, we're literally pouring in pure caffeine and an acidic beverage into our system, and that is going to super shoot up our cortisol levels, and after that we have a drop. The more spikes, the more elevations and drops of cortisol you have, the more inflammation you will have in your body, the less resilience to stress you'll have in your body. And also, interestingly enough, these cortisol spikes also create sugar spikes in the body. And we're coming to understand how important this is as a contributor to all disease, really, both cortisol and high sugar levels. So even if you consume a black coffee with no sugar in it, it will spike your blood sugar levels. Both the cortisol and the high sugar will just fuel the inflammation, pain, and imbalance in the body. So reducing coffee as much as we can, not having any coffee after 2 o'clock, and definitely not introducing our day with coffee. We want to start off with water first. We can specialize that water. And if and when we move on to coffee, we need some protein in there. Often I like to suggest some collagen peptides, which you can't see or taste, and they will nourish the musculoskeletal. They will line the stomach a bit with that protein, because collagen is protein. And then you will receive your desired caffeine and coffee effects and taste.
Mm-hmm. Is it just coffee, or is it black tea and or yerba mate, or other beverages that have caffeine as well in them as well?
So if you're in a grave state of adrenal fatigue, I would wean off or remove all caffeine to reset the body.
And chocolate?
And chocolate as well. But being aware that, again, everyone is unique and slightly different. Organic mold-free coffee does have nice antioxidants for the liver, right? Depending on your genetics, your genetic exposure. If your parents and your grandparents drank coffee, you may metabolize coffee better or worse. With black tea, there is caffeine, but there are also important polyphenols, antioxidants for the cardiovascular system, very important. Green tea has caffeine, but it also has L-theanine in it. L-theanine is an amino acid. So caffeine brings up the cortisol in the body, and L-theanine brings down the cortisol. So it's quite balancing, but not for everyone. Everyone is really unique, again, depending on our genes, depending on the states we're in, what we've been exposed to in terms of stress up until this moment. Cacao as well, rich in magnesium, which is relaxing and calming, but it does have that caffeine in it. What is your sensitivity? What is your clinical history and background? We need to assess all cases individually. But if we can lessen caffeine and make sure that if we are receiving any caffeine, it comes from an organic whole food source, like raw cacao rather than commercial chocolates, right? Or organic black tea rather than non-organic black tea that is in a bleached casing, for example. All these things make a difference because the more organic we go, the more unindustrialized we go, the more antioxidants we receive, and that will compensate. It will help compensate for the side effects we correlate to coffee and caffeine in general.
So anyone who's listening and is suffering from burnout, morning, preferably no coffee, yes?
Preferably not coffee, and if you have to, wait an hour. First have water with some electrolytes.
Cold or
Room temperature or warm is best for the GI tract. We want to flush in the morning. We want to comfort the body. So we want warm or room temperature filtered water. Electrolytes are the best way to start in this case of talking about adrenal fatigue. And then after an hour, 60 minutes at least, bare minimum, you can have a coffee, but it has to be with either breakfast or collagen peptides.
And breakfast, no jam because it has sugar, etc. Yes.
We don't want to spike blood sugar levels in the morning. We've just said how the blood sugar accompanies cortisol spikes, and whenever we have a spike, this will create imbalance in our hormone system. What is cortisol? Hormones. What are we talking about when we talk about adrenal fatigue? Endocrine imbalances, is hormonal imbalance. So whenever we ingest sugar or we ingest caffeine, these are going to spike. So we need to lessen them as much as possible and consume them in such a way that we shunt those spikes. We need to soften those spikes. And many ways to do it. Protein with your coffee, waiting 60 minutes, and then sugar-wise, as you said, avoiding the sugar. But we can also add protein, fat, and fiber to anything that has a bit of sugar, and we will shunt that spike a little bit more. Also, we can consume some natural sweetness, but we don't want it to be received in the stomach first before anything else, similar to the caffeine. We want to first consume our protein and our fats and our fiber, and then we have the fructose, for example, from the jam.
So the day starts, cup of room temperature water, an hour later, preferably no coffee. But you mentioned protein. What is the preferred form of protein? Because a lot of people would find it difficult to have fish or meat in the morning.
I would definitely suggest eggs and almond butter. Eggs are rich in albumin, which is a protein found in the white of the eggs. And almond butter, well, almonds are one of the nuts that contain most protein.
Is it just almond butter? Because then there's now so many different nut butters there. There's hazelnut butter and pistachio.
Almonds are the best.
Almonds are the best.
Peanuts is a no-no, rarely. Extremely rich in omega-6 and 9, which are pro-inflammatory. We want to focus on omega-3 if we're in a state of adrenal fatigue, really to bring down the inflammation, oxidative stress in the body. Yes, and almond butter is also rich in magnesium. So aside from the protein content, it's really the best nut butter we can have. Peanuts are also genetically modified and exposed to aflatoxins. So this is a type of fungus that will create more inflammation in the body. So for most reasons, almonds are better than peanuts. And those are the two most famous nuts for being rich in protein. All the rest have other benefits, but not particularly rich in protein.
So going forward in the day, we have managed to calm down the system, no caffeine, but then it's lunchtime. Is there anything we have to avoid in order to calm the system down?
Yes, we need to avoid inflammatory foods that will create stress in the body, that will elevate blood sugar and that will elevate cortisol. These are refined foods, right? So white pasta, white bread, cookies, everything that is refined wheat, essentially, refined sugars, which are also a hidden product in many different commercialized foods. White sugar, cane sugar is not the best. We should swap this up if possible with something like coconut sugar or even a stevia, raw honey. Then anything that is very rich in saturated fats, and especially omega-6 and 9, like deli meats, for example, corn oils as well, which are found in many products. They often act as an emulsifier, soy oil as well, canola oil. These are all highly inflammatory. And then canned foods, these are very rich in microplastics and histamines. Histamines are a type of inflammatory
Including canned legumes, because a lot of people would use canned chickpeas or other types of legumes. Are they also bad?
We thought they were okay, but we've done some studies recently and we've discovered that most canned foods contain microplastics and are extremely high in this one inflammatory cell or compound of our body, which is called histamine. Histamine promotes inflammation, creates vasodilation, and contributes to a lot of the chronic inflammatory diseases that we see nowadays. So if possible, to stay away from the cans, rather soaking your pulses first overnight without any salt and cooking them, or if you have a pressure cooker, put on a timer. It's tough to always keep an eye on them because they take a while until they're soft. So I would suggest following those strategies.
And there are some other things that are very surprising. I've heard that aubergines and tomatoes can be inflammatory. Are those to be avoided?
Those are nightshades. So nightshades contain lectins, and for some people, they can be inflammatory.
So it's not bad for everyone?
Not bad for everyone. They contain important antioxidants as well. Tomato contains lycopene, excellent for the cardiovascular system, for your eyes, especially important for men, especially when you cook tomato. Aubergine, I mean, that purple color is strong in antioxidants as well. In nightshades, we also have potatoes, including sweet potato, which is a wonderful one as well. But especially those who have skin conditions like psoriasis and eczema, we should be more aware of these nightshades. So I like to link this to an ancient form of medicine called Ayurveda. And so this is ancient Indian medicine, and you view the body very much so in terms of natural elements. And if there's a lot of fire in the body, fire that shows up literally as redness in the skin, trying to be excreted from the skin, we want to lessen all of the foods that will promote that fire within the body. So the nightshade family are going to enhance fire and inflammation if you already have this predisposition.
Mm-hmm. So from a naturopathic perspective, what are the remedies that we can use to reduce burnout?
Remedies in terms of supplements. Yes. So in terms of supplements, we have number one, adaptogens, ginseng, Panax ginseng, and Siberian ginseng. These help regulate cortisol levels and have strong antioxidant effects. We have maca, which also supports our sex hormone production alongside cortisol regulation. We have rhodiola rosea. We have, also depending on the stage of adrenal fatigue you're at, we will approach this in a different way, right? So I will often go through a set of questions. I'll even do a urinary test, which is nice and non-invasive for my patients, to assess where they're at. And then we'll choose the perfect botanical for them to take at a particular time of the day, because cortisol goes through a cycle. It's meant to raise in the morning, peak, spike, between 10 and 11, then it softens at 3, 4 when most people have finished having lunch, and it's when the body starts to calm down. It should be nice and low before bedtime. But when you're in a stage 2 adrenal fatigue, it is opposite, and when you're in a stage 3, it's completely flat. So these different botanicals and adaptogens will react in a slightly different way in the body, regulating this cortisol, bringing it down or bringing it up. Depending on the stage, I will use different botanicals, but these are the options that we do have. Then fundamentally important for adrenal fatigue is B complex, methylated B complex. We methylate folate and we methylate cobalamin, B9 and B12. It's a special type of process that makes it more bioavailable for the body and more effective within the body. And then we always have to have a nice strong dosage of vitamin B5, pantothenic acid in this blend. Very good for the adrenals. Adrenals also love vitamin C, one of the most famous antioxidants alive, of course. And then we have compounds that just rev up the system if you are in that typical state of fatigue. CoQ10, ubiquinone, very important for generating energy. Arginine. This is an amino acid that we do find in collagen and other proteins as well, but we need a therapeutic dosage of 1,000 milligrams. Rev up the system, get the body pumping, the blood pumping everywhere. And then aside from this, it's important to take into account if the person can't sleep, we're literally going to give them sleep support at night. So high dosage magnesium, right? Higher than 600 milligrams, we want to get close to that 1,000, if not more. We can also test for the deficiency, and then in relation to the degree of deficiency, we'll either up the dosage or not. Phosphatidylserine. Right? This is a fatty acid compound that actually is a component of all, phosphorus is a component of all of our cells in our body, but phosphatidylserine is an important component of the brain and central nervous system. It just nourishes the nervous system and makes it feel comfortable and relaxed and safe so that you can sleep at night. Then also L-theanine at night can be very important to help relax the body. We need to get the person sleeping because this is our number one regenerator. We have all the revers and balances, the supplements during the day, but we need to get them sleeping well at night. So that sleep supplementation is often very, very important.
It's good that you mentioned sleep, because we started from the morning, our morning ritual, and then lunchtime and the supplements, and now it's the evening. We get home and there are so many other factors that are impacting our sleep hygiene. What should a person who's suffering from burnout do in order to sleep better?
So a lot of us have families and we have to co-coordinate stuff, but essentially you want to have an early dinner. 6, 7,
what time?
6, 7, maximum 8.
Anything specific for dinner?
I just want to also add on that our digestive tract follows the movement of the sun. In Ayurveda, we're actually taught that, so your Agni is your internal, your digestive fire. And so just as the sun raises, your ability to digest and absorb your food rather than just eat and excrete your food is enhanced, and it dips as the sun lowers. So in Ayurveda, we believe that you should have dinner before sunset. Now that's pretty difficult
At
here in the
winter,
UK.
it means you can't eat after 3.
So we'll stick at like 6, 7, maximum 8, but just keeping that in account, right? We only really absorb our food when we have digestive enzymes and that digestive fire. So if you're eating at 6, 7, 8 and it's dark, you need to masticate very, very well. We want to have a nice balanced meal so that we nourish our bodies optimally. And then we want at least 1 to 2 hours, 2 hours is best before bedtime, because otherwise we're just digesting our food throughout the night. Even if we're exhausted and we feel like we're asleep, our body is going through so many different functions to try and digest that food. It's not focusing on regeneration, restoration, which is what we really, really need. Then, pitch black darkness for melatonin production. Melatonin is going to help you regulate your circadian rhythm and help you feel more sleepy and have more optimal sleep during the night. We want a natural airflow as well. We don't want a cold draft, nor do we want a blasting heater and an aircon. We want some balanced airflow and balanced temperature in the room. Very important.
So leave a window open?
So it really depends on the house, but the slight opening of a window, perhaps in another area of the house that is close by the room and the door not completely shut, works well. Air filters are excellent as well. You don't want it going on throughout the night, but air filters are wonderful. Also, snake plants, a type of succulent, help cleanse the air and produce more oxygen. These are nice to have in the room as well. Something I almost forgot to explain, but was my next moment, is being cautious of the amount and type of light you expose the body to as well. We spoke about the darkness, but in preparation for sleep, actually where I have my glasses right here, we want to limit screen time, whether that is the television or on our phone, whatever it may be. If we do need to use screens, we want to lower the luminosity, and then we can even use a filter like these glasses have a filter to filter out the blue light. Now, maybe we don't see it as blue. It just seems like a colder light to us, but that blue light is absorbed by the optic nerve and it triggers our fight and flight. It keeps us going, it produces and secretes cortisol and adrenaline in the body, which we don't need when we're preparing ourselves for restorative sleep at night. So either we lower the luminosity, we put on the filters, or we wear some glasses like these. I usually recommend Health, with an F, is a great online health store which supplies excellent quality blue filter glasses, for example. And then, yes, we have our dark sleep and our regulated temperature and air purified room. In the morning, it is very important to then immediately open up the curtains or go outside and expose ourselves to natural sunlight. This is going to trigger the natural and healthy, balanced production of good stress, healthy cortisol that gets us out of bed, that helps us feel motivated and drive, helps us regulate our inflammation in our body. Cortisol also does that. So it's very, very important to prepare for bed in the most relaxed scenery, creating a nice dark environment, everything really quite gentle, and in the morning to expose ourselves to that light again. This is what is going to help us reset the circadian rhythm and get us feeling energy during the day and relaxation at night, which it should be.
How about those of us who live in a country like the UK when it's almost always cloudy?
So we have actually measured the amount of light that we should receive in the morning, 100 to 1000 lux. And we have actually calculated how much time that is in the UK. So summertime, that's 10 minutes outside with your warm glass of water and your electrolytes before your coffee, right? In wintertime, that's 30 minutes outside. Although there are clouds, there is still some sunlight coming through and reflecting. There are also infrared lamps and lamps that mimic natural sunlight. And some people use these.
And they're good. Do they work?
Yes, wonderful.
So we've now talked about what to eat and how what rhythm to follow in order to reduce burnout. I would also like to know about other holistic strategies that one can have in order to tackle burnout.
One of my favorite ones is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So this was developed for deep sea divers who would surface too quickly and develop what we call the bends, nitrogen bubbles in their brain and in their body, and this creates a lot of detrimental effects. But then soon after using it for these deep sea divers, we saw, wow, okay, this compression chamber with pure oxygen filtered in rapidly increases oxygen levels, rapidly alkalizes the body, switches off the fight and flight, and engages the body in deep parasympathetic healing mode. So for absolutely every individual that I've met with adrenal fatigue, if they have the opportunity to use a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and supersaturate their blood with oxygen, the most powerful antioxidant, which is going to remind their body and revive their body through parasympathetic, I'd always go for it. Within the hyperbaric chamber, you feel very relaxed because it takes you into that state of parasympathetic. But the moment the chamber is unzipped or opened and you get out, you feel stable energy. You start sleeping better. You feel more energy during the day. Also, acupuncture is excellent for helping restore and reset the central nervous system because it works with the meridians, the energy channels of the body. And of course, because whichever phase we're in, we've been through a lot of stress, either in the beginning or wherever it may be. I also suggest body work, meditation, and counseling or even psychedelic assisted therapy, because many traumas, many emotional filters that we have will make it so that on a day-to-day basis, even if there isn't an immediate danger, we're perceiving danger. And so our bodies are experiencing real stress, even if there isn't an immediate stressor around us. And that will just contribute more and more to the adrenal fatigue, to the burnout, to the imbalance. So going further in depth with that type of therapy is highly recommended.
Is there enough research about microdosing on psilocybin or magic mushrooms?
There is quite a lot of research. We're gathering more and more. And just the other day, I heard about a new study that's come out in the JAMA journal, where they saw that in comparison to antidepressants, more specifically sertraline, psilocybin therapy has been 4 times more effective at reducing depression and overcoming PTSD, which of course, as we said, if that is within the body, if that is held within the body, that is going to reflect on every interaction and every activity of our day, even if there's no immediate stressor, because that core belief is instilled within us, it will constantly reflect, and so it has to be addressed.
I think that's it for those are my questions. Is there anything else that you would like to add about burnout?
I would just like to remind everyone that it's not a diagnosis and it's illy defined. So if you are feeling low mood or fatigued or feeling a lot of anxiety, and then especially if any other system of your body has been affected, you feel you're bloating a bit more, or all of a sudden you have looser stools or harder stools, or your skin starts reacting, reach out to your friends, find a naturopath, find a functional medicine practitioner to help you uncover the root cause, your mediators and triggers, and create a bespoke therapeutic plan that's comfortable to you, right? Everybody is unique, and we need to assess where you're at and make sure you're comfortable with the therapeutics.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because none of this is medical advice. I suggest that any of the viewers or the listeners who want to have personal advice, get in touch with Camila De Santos. I'll leave a link to her website so you can book a consultation with her. Camila, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, sister. I can't
Thank
wait.
you.